I believe a financial planner should be looking at a person's personal situation and goals, and then putting in a financial plan to make those happen. So sometimes it might be as simple as setting up an investment, or sometimes it's getting more control under their money, or saving for certain things, or a combination of everything. But it really comes back to understanding what the client wants, and then providing the roadmap on how to get there in the best situation for them.
Yeah, I like that, because there are approaches out there where some financial planners out there that just specifically focus on property or whatever it may be. And for me, I always think about that, and they're like, well, is that the right approach for everyone? And the answer is probably no, because everyone has a different situation, everyone has a different plan in life, and that's why the word planning and financial planning is, I think it's more of a holistic approach rather than just looking at property or managed funds, or whatever it may be.
Completely agreed. And on the planning side of things, you can have a rigid set goal and plan and put that in place, and then a year later something happened and things completely change, whether that's bringing children into the mix or your focus shifts and your goals realign. So plans do change, but it really comes back to what you want at the time and making that happen in a smart way. Yeah.
And for the listeners out there, we are going to talk about the position that you're in right now, the life cycle. What you are doing right now may be different from what you're doing in 10 years, 20 years, 30 years down the track. We'll just have a chat about that. But because this is a business podcast, of course, we're going to try and talk about building personal wealth and aligning that with your business as well. Because I come across a lot of clients that are great in their business, yet really, really struggle in terms of building wealth and prosperity in their personal life, aiming towards those goals. For some reason, their business is thriving and they haven't really aligned what they want to do. And some people just like that. They just want to grow their business and they don't really care about their personal side. They don't want to buy property, have investments, or they just want to live off 2-minute noodles every day. And that's fine, but most people aren't probably like that.
Yeah.
But I think they need to get a good understanding. So can you tell us a little bit about your ideas around building wealth personally and aligning that with business?
Usually self-employed people, you focus on the business because you're passionate about it. It is your main goal, but there is that other element that it is there to make you money and get make sure your personal goals happen. But what tends to happen is you focus on building that business, growing that business, and you put your personal finances or personal goals to the wayside. And then often your personal kind of wealth doesn't match your business wealth, or maybe not wealth, but satisfaction. Yeah, we spend a lot of time on focusing on the personal side and what's needed there, and to make sure it does match what you're doing with the business.
Because that's what I always like to say to clients is you start off with the end goal in mind. So why get into a business? A lot of people might say, I get into the business because I love doing what I do, but ultimately it's a business and you're going to put capital into that, which means that you need some type of return out of that to satisfy what you're doing in your personal life.
Yeah, definitely.
And that's why I really want to talk about this. So when people are planning, obviously, in your first couple of years of business, it's always hard unless you've been, given a couple of $1 million to start your business in the first instance. It's super hard to start a business. So how should people that are starting their business align their personal side?
The earlier you start planning that, the better result or outcome you can have. You might need to spend a bit of time making sure you're building up the right amount of personal savings to get by, because your income, you're probably going to lose the income that you have at your current job, and everything's going into the business and you can't draw a wage or an income to begin with. So you need to plan like what that expense is going to be to keep things running personally. Make sure that you're not bringing stress on there, but then making sure you can keep everything in the business to begin with to see it grow if necessary.
Yeah, and is that something that you work with clients on? Let's say for the first 12 months, do you sit down and say, well, what are your non-negotiables in your life in terms of personal spending? Like some people might say, I'm going to give up my gym, but it's never going to happen. Is that something that you would go through with them?
Definitely, yeah. So it does come back to personal preference, but that's ideally what we do is getting right down to the nitty-gritty and the details. So working out exactly what your fixed expenses are and, whether they're going to change or not. Rarely they don't. So that might be your rent, your mortgage, your electricity, your groceries, those basic things. Now, understanding what you need to live on, week to week, month to month. Then also, outside of that, you do still have to have a life and have some funds. So you need to have a bit of a buffer in there. But and then from there you can really plan, okay, well, this is a savings, this is going to get you through, say, 6 months of a reduced income or no income, and then you can hopefully get the business to that level that you can start paying yourself away.
So you essentially know in some instance how much the business needs to be making to make it viable, one, so that you can continue running the business and grow the business, and two, to live a life that you're, at least for the first couple of years, just be happy with.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that's it. And sometimes people will be, already in that process and might be a year or two into running the business, but only just pulling out money every now and then to get by, and still don't really understand how much they should be paying themselves or need to be paying themselves. So that's another thing that we can do as well. Like if you're already in that process, work out what you do need to be paying. Make sure it's affordable, like working with the accountants and business owner, and then getting that kind of structure back in place that you typically have when you're an employee. Yeah,
and that's a good point. That's a good sort of segue to go into the second stage, is that we were speaking about startup businesses where you sort of don't know, but at least you've already planned a year or two in front of how much you need. Now, if you have reached that point where the business is profitable, I do find that a lot of clients don't understand that money that they're leaving in their bank is basically, in a sense, with inflation and all those sort of aspects and earning and opportunity costs, you're actually losing money that's just sitting in there. So you need to think of strategies, and this is where you guys come into with that surplus income or profit, what is that best put towards? And it's different for everyone, right?
Yeah, exactly. It comes back to preferences, timing and goals. So it might be best to keep it in the business if you've got some big expenses coming up, or you're hiring more people or buying a lot of product. But then at the same stage, there might be other ideas where you want to get a bit more return on the business, or, if you're saving for investment property personally, or with the business is buying property. So many different goals, and everyone will be individualized in that approach, but you need to kind of understand what they are, or work out what they are, spend the time on working out what they are, and then putting the plan in to make sure that happens. Yeah,
that's good. Like, even for myself personally, this is something that I've been working on for the last couple of years. And just to share an example, the first couple of years, I worked out in the new wave business that I could live off $400 a week, and the rest, because I just wanted to really invest back into the business. I see business, this is where you need to level it up and balance it, because I see business as one of, or if not the best return in investment that you can have. There aren't many investments out there that can provide you with a 20, 30, 40% return on your actual capital. How much just as an overview, like shares, what would they be returning at? An average probably.
Yeah, well, I guess we always try and approach that on a conservative type thing. But if you're looking at the higher risk, you'd only be expecting that 10, 12% return. Obviously, there can be a lot higher than that, depending on markets. But that's, I guess, a good safe return.
So 10, 12%, and then you've got managed funds that are sitting around.
If it's the same risk, it can be around that same kind of return.
And then you have property. That's probably what?
Property, you're 4 or 5%.
Yeah. So we're just working on averages here, guys. But you're looking at like different ways that you can invest your money, and then obviously then you have cash. Where you have
basically nothing at the moment.
And probably nothing for a little bit of time. Going forward, the rates are just basically steady at the moment. So you got to think about how much do you leave in your business, but how much do you also take out as well? Now, going back to my situation, there was a point in there where more and more money was just being invested back into the business, but I am also a true believer of building equity in your own name as well. So business poses risk, and any business, no matter what it is, there is that slight risk of it just collapsing in a sense. So I like to diversify my investments, not only in business, but also start to pull out some of that money to invest into property, build up equity there, strengthen your sort of your personal finances so that you continue to leverage and so forth. Now, is that something that you help clients with as well?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, definitely, and in conjunction with you guys, like the accountants. And I guess that's what's really good here, that we can kind of have that really close relationship to make sure the business, the personal side, both are aligned. People will put everything into the business, and then sometimes your business might not even be a saleable business. It will make you money now, but long term, can you sell it in 20, 30 years? Will that be your retirement? Sometimes people are the business. So you really need to look at while the business, once it's up and running, start looking at definitely where you said diversifying. So diversifying some of that money and risk. And you can do that by bringing out of the business into your personal name, and then you have the same investment options basically in the business or personally. But it's a big thing you got to think of long term. Always have that in the back of your mind about what the end goal is.
Yeah, for sure. And do you have any stories where you've seen businesses that have been doing really, really well and just for many years, and then now they're starting to think about the personal side and investing and diversifying to get passive income, transition into that sort of aspect?
Yeah, definitely. So I've seen and worked with a couple of people whose businesses are going really well, and then, like we said at the start, just really kind of neglected the personal side of things. And while it wasn't bad, it just they weren't in the same position personally as the business was. So we spent a lot of time working out what was needed, what the personal goals were. Some of them were like financial goals, but some are lifestyle. Lifestyle's just as important. So making sure that you can afford them, and then making sure it's worth it. So there has been some instances where we got down really nitty gritty, and I guess you could say kind of structured and cleaned up the personal and the business side of things. So separated, made sure everything was nice and separate, and then making sure that they both work well. And I've seen some really good results, and a lot of it, there might be the financial results, but it's also the stress levels. People are a lot more comfortable when you know exactly what's happening. You're not worrying about bills, and
they're secure, de-risking.
And you're seeing investments slowly grow, like you're getting that growth, you're getting that return, and your business is still doing well, and you can afford to personally build well. And it brings a lot of stress out of day to day.
I like that, because then you're not relying just on one aspect to bring you in wealth, basically. A lot of people just rely solely on business wealth, which is okay if you're aiming to be like an Amazon style business where it just needs to be that way, and you're trying to create some type of legacy, then fine, do that. But if for most people, it's probably not going to be like that. And it's a good way to just start planning now, so that you have different types of investments. And then the de-risking part, that's where insurance comes in, right?
Yeah, that's definitely an element of it. So I guess as boring as insurance is, it can be a necessary part of an overall plan, because at the end of the day, everything comes back to your ability to earn an income. So some businesses might be a bit more secure, where if anything were to happen to the business owner and they were out of action for a few months or a year, it might still be able to go and run and generate profit, generate an income. But there's other businesses where if that one person goes, everything will start slowly coming to a halt. So things like income protection for business owners is really important. Can be important when you need it, and we see it because we have been doing it for a while. When the claims come through and you actually get a good result, and the money comes through, it can really again take out that financial stress.
Because most people, you would say, haven't planned adequately enough for passive income and making sure they're just relying on one source. And again, if you have a family and you have one person that is the breadwinner, and then suddenly something happens, like what are some examples of something happening, like a trigger?
The horrible one that you see is cancer, but a lot of the time it's more income protection claims are accidents and injuries. And they can be in your personal time, like breaking an arm, or motorbikes. Like we just finished a claim for someone who rides motorbikes. We put the cover in place. 2 weeks later, he fell off a motorbike on the weekend and broke his arm and was out of action for a couple of months. So the income protection got him by.
And what are they covering there? It's dependent on the cover, obviously, but
that one was income protection, so it was just his time out of work. So because he had a manual job, he couldn't do day-to-day work. So it was just he got 2 months paid while it had to recover.
So peace of mind around that as well is a huge factor in businesses. Obviously, when you're younger and you're starting up businesses, you probably don't think too much about it. But it's still a necessary evil, I believe, just to make sure that you're secure all around. Yeah,
that's right. And I think I like to have the approach that sometimes the best quality insurance isn't the most appropriate, because chances are you're not going to use it. So it's finding that balance between something that's going to provide assistance if you ever need it, but day to day it's affordable. It's not taking a huge whack into your paycheck or your business profit. But you still got that peace of mind, and constantly reviewing that as well to make sure it's still appropriate.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, cool. So we've talked about a little bit about the business side, how you align it. Now, one thing I do want to talk about, because I've talked about cash flow on this podcast before in terms of businesses, but cash flow in terms of personal wealth and personal circumstances, I feel a lot of clients and just anyone in general are living on this week by week mentality where, we're in a world where I believe in Australia, we've got everything pretty good. Very good. Yeah. So the week by week mentality comes in. If you lose your job, then you go into center league, or if you lose this, it's obviously it's a lot harder than that. But we've compared to most parts of the world, I feel as though a lot of people aren't educated because they feel as though it's not a necessity.
Yeah, and it's not something that's really we're taught or is ingrained in our day-to-day life. So it's just kind of you earn and you spend, and you hopefully you earn more than what you're spending. Yeah.
So do you have a general rule about cash flow, saving? What you like? Is there?
Yeah, ideally, with your income coming in, you should have allocated that to be 60% fixed expenses, or no more than 60% basically. So that's your rent, your groceries, your necessities. Then 20% for your kind of fun and entertainment. So that's your hobbies, your lifestyle, things you could go without but don't need to. And then leftovers that 20%. And ideally that 20% is what's being used to improve your financial position.
Yeah.
And whether that's investing or saving for an investment property or paying down debt or just saving in general, it should be being used to improve your situation.
Yeah.
So,
and I think a lot of people will think, well, my 20% is only going to be $100. It doesn't matter what that figure is. The point is to get into a habit of saving that 20% and putting it to good use.
Yeah.
It could be $10, but the compound of that, the effect of that is huge.
Oh, massive. And you look back over the last year or two, like if you've got a business and when you compared now to when you started, the time has just flown by, I imagine. Like it always does for anyone, that's basically working and living. So when you're just doing those small, consistent habits, in no time, it's actually very rewarding. I always compare it to exercise. If you just go every now and then to the gym, you're not going to get anywhere. But if you're doing consistent, regular exercise, you see results.
That's right. And you don't have to see it now. It's same as exercise, right? You don't expect to go in there and lose 20 kilos in a day.
Yeah, exactly.
Same as investing. You don't expect to make $1 million in a day unless you suddenly hit it with Bitcoin or something like that, which there's no financial advice around that.
Stay clear of that.
Stay clear of that one. Yeah, but it's the same thing. It's just about being diligent, having great habits around your money, and being aware that money, you can turn $1 into another $1. A lot of people don't think about that. They just think they have to earn it and then spend it.
Yeah, that's right. And you kind of focus on the now rather than the longer picture. But like you said, putting away $50, $100 a month, it's crazy what that builds up to.
Tell me about how far are you looking forward for clients?
Sometimes we project to 20, 25 years. Well, obviously a lot can change, and the longer it goes, the less accurate, I guess it is, because so much will change between them. But it still gives you a good picture in regards to the decisions you make now and the effect that they have later on.
Right.
A good example, just back to like investing and returns, is with certain investments. If you've got them there for the long term, you might only be earning 8 or 10%, or let's say 8% on a certain amount, but you hold it for 10, 15 years and you're contributing $100 a month. It can turn into thousands and thousands of dollars down the track because of compounding interest.
Yeah, and then the other way goes with obviously looking at properties and so forth. And you'll sit down with the client, and I believe you have done this before, and had a look at their 25-year term, and then figure out ways on how to better save money, or put it to an offset account, and look at the effects of that to reduce the term of the actual property. And there's so many, because everyone has different assets in their life.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that's a big thing that we do, I guess, forecasting and modelling. So we'll spend a lot of time getting to understand your current budget and situation, and then use those actual real figures to then forecast and model what the future looks like. So things like that we've done in the past with people is on the starting out side is saving for property or investment property, and then looking at different options between, say, an investment property or shares, and what are the pros and cons of each, and the costs, and we can kind of work out, okay, this is what it would cost to begin with, but this is the difference in 10 years' time.
Yeah, and how do they track that ongoing? Is that something that you can assist with?
Yeah, ideally, yeah. So we work, we have software that data feeds everything into one place. We also keep really, a detailed software in our, in office, and we compare that every time we catch up. If we're working ongoing relationship, every time we catch up, we'll review where you are now compared to where you were, and then compare that to the original forecast.
And I'm able to just jump onto my phone and check where my position is, or
for the Cashflow software,
Yes.
definitely. So that we've been using for a couple of years, but I'm the biggest fan, I'd say. But we've got a fair few people that use it as well that love it.
Yes.
So it data feeds all your bank accounts or any kind of financial account into one place, and then it categorizes it down to the cent in regards to where it's going.
Where you're spending.
Yeah, your mortgage, your groceries.
Your net wealth.
Your net wealth, yeah. So you can have all your assets, liabilities. It's really good since some people that have quite complex financial situations. So you might have a few different properties,
businesses.
Yeah, businesses, different assets, different investments. Have it all in the one place, all your loans, and it will just break it down and say, okay, these are your assets, these are your liabilities, this is your net position. And then even better, data feeds every day, so it's accurate. It's not something you're having to work on, fill out a spreadsheet, or so.
And it goes back to that fact that you can't manage what you don't measure, in a sense. Like you can't. How do you know what to do, where to put your money if you don't even know how much money you have in the first place?
Yeah, 100%. That's it, and that's. That aligns with our forecasting as well. If you don't know the real figures, what you're forecasting might not be that accurate. So when you do know exactly what you have, then it makes the goals more tangible, more real.
Yeah, and again, be careful with financial planners that don't deep dive. Because there's forecasts, they could be saying you're driving Ferraris in 3 years' time.
That's right,
and, it's just not the case.
A good example of that's even just some of the software that's online available for free, where you can say, oh, this is my current super balance, this is how much I earn, how will I retire? A lot of those, they paint a really rosy picture. It's like, you're going to have $1 million, $2 million, but you're earning 50, 60 grand a year. And I don't think they take into account real world situation. They don't get enough information to give you an accurate answer. Yeah.
Moving on, I know I've only got you for a bit of time here, but I want to talk about something that's really close to your heart, I guess, in terms of ethical investments. And this is something I know that the world is changing. We're seeing big companies now driving impact in terms of CO2 and all those sort of aspects that their business is having on the environment. And I know that there's a big push that even the Olympics coming to Brisbane, there's been talk that how will Australia be seen from a hosting standpoint, a sustainability standpoint, when we are one of the worst in the world
per capita
for what we do. Now, I know you're a big fan of sustainable investments, ethical investments. Are you able to talk a little bit about that? What it is?
Yeah, sure. I'd love to. We're seeing more and more come out with your super and your investments, mainly in the financial planning space around ethical and sustainable investments. And at first, I thought, oh, this is great. It's finally the money that we have, the everyday investor, will actually kind of make change. But then you dive into those investments, and some of them are the exact same as their standard products, and you'll see that.
So it's a marketing ploy for them.
Yeah, that's it. And they'll have, not all of them, but a lot of them out there. They're slowly getting better, I think, because there's more pressure and more demand for it, I guess, from everyday people. But you look at the top 10 investments, and they're just the same, your mining companies that are in the top 10 investments, but it's an ethical, sustainable fund. And the reason that they can get around that is because it meets their own ethical or sustainable standards. It's not an industry-wide one.
Right.
There are a couple out industry bodies now that are giving the rule book, and if those investment funds don't meet those standards, they're the ones to kind of steer clear of.
Yeah. So which one are you looking at? Are there any sort of, obviously not advice, but are there specific ones that you've been deep diving into?
Yeah. And it's not advice, but ones I like, because we consistently do research to people, the investment products change, new ones enter the market, but some of the ones that I think are the best is Australian Ethical. So they offer super products, personal investment products, but they actually do what they say they do.
That's what they preach.
Exactly, yeah. And they're not alone. There's beta shares out there. They have some really good ETFs that are the same, but they'll invest a lot more heavily in renewable energies. Priority is really removing the kind of the bad investments. So that's your mining companies and obviously like gambling and stuff like that. But then they'll shift also into more renewable and I guess future-proof almost investment options.
And I guess the tough part is, aligning that ethical side, but as well as making sure that for a client, it's still growing. Growing their portfolio and their investment and so forth.
That's right, yeah, because it's one thing to, have that viewpoint, but at the same time, it's your own money. You don't want to put that money in there and it go.
That's right. You're not going to do it just because you can do it.
Yeah, and you've still got to be smart about it, and that's it. Everyone has that same kind of belief. So yeah, there's a bit to it, and there's two, I guess, approaches to it in a way as well. That there's the doing the right thing approach, that you're putting your money into stuff that you believe, and you're not funding the big companies that you don't like.
Yep.
But then also, it seems the world's shifting that way anyway, whether we like it or not. There's a heap of pushback, but it's going to happen. So that could
it has to happen.
Yeah, it has to. That's probably a good thing for your investments. It might take a little bit longer than we hope, but it should be future-proofing those investments is personal belief, but at the same time, you've got to take that all the research.
And I'm sure there are a lot of people that have that same belief.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And we need that in our community. And small change in investment can make a big change down the track. These are little things. We don't have to, suddenly become vegans.
Yeah.
But these little things can actually help the world as well.
That's right. Yeah, you see the big companies come out and they'll tell you, "Oh, what are you doing to minimise your carbon footprint?" And it's like, well, there's only so much you can do. But the big companies out there, they have the power to make the change. And that's where it does come back to us, because people's small amount of money in comparison to, huge companies, but when you're investing all your super money, balance out there in Australia is trillions of dollars. So if everyone's starting to shift their money into stuff that they believe in, it has a massive impact on society, basically. So that's probably the biggest change you can do to make an impact to what you believe in.
Exactly.
Is move your super, move your personal investments in line with that.
Yeah, I like that. And look, I know we can go into a deep wormhole and uncover many different things around this, but we might just finish it off here with a little bit about how you structure your fees, where people can find you, if they have any questions, what's the best way to get in touch?
In regards to fees, we have a flat fee approach, so it's very transparent. So it's a quoted figure. If we're just doing one upfront advice where we're helping just a one-off, we'll quote that before we actually do the work, and you make sure you're happy with it. But then we also can do ongoing advice where we have that ongoing relationship. We're helping out day to day. We don't have set. You're only allowed to contact us 2 times a year. We're very open and appreciate
things change, right?
Yeah, things change, and you might just have a quick question around finance. So, just like people's goals, the actual fees have to be individualised. We can't say this is our one fee for everyone, but you might have a completely different pool of money.
It's tailored, but at least it's transparent and fixed.
We always go over that clearly before we start any work together.
Because generally you'd find that, I guess, the traditional, dinosaur style financial planners, they'll charge percentages of how much you invest and all those sort of aspects. And I'm not a big fan of that, only because they're basically punishing you for investing more.
Yeah, exactly. That's my viewpoint as well. So
and it doesn't necessarily mean they're doing more work.
Yeah,
it just means that they're just earning more. So just be careful out there, guys. There are a lot of cowboys out there and sharks in this environment. If you want to get in touch with someone, they just give you some, just a second opinion at least. Just contact Wayne. And contact details wise, direct email to you, website.
Yeah, website's probably the easiest because it has everything. So New Way Financial Planning. You can go on there and you can either have phone numbers there or the email or contact box, and we'll always get back to people pretty quickly. And always what we do at first is just have a bit of a chat about what you're after, if we can potentially help, and then we have like a complimentary or free meeting just up front to
Awesome.
discuss that a bit more detail. And go from there.
And I just wanted to add in there are two things on the website that you should definitely give a go. One is the free financial and health assessment. So this is literally a 1-minute survey. You put in your details in there, and it asks a variety of questions, probably about 10 to 15 questions, and it'll quickly give you a health assessment of your financial situation. So it may mean that you need to focus on certain areas of your life, whether that's cash flow or investments or de-risking. But it just gives you a very, very quick overview of what you can do right now to improve your financial situation. Now, the second part is Wayne. He's not only a financial advisor, he's also a well-renowned author, and he's created an ebook, and it's a free download, guys. So get on there. I've read through the ebook. It really helps to rake in the big bucks.
Excuse the title.
Excuse the title, but get on there, download it, because it has basically everything that Wayne has spoken about and a little bit more. So it goes down into if you're just starting out in building wealth and just controlling your wealth, to purchasing your home, to the 60-20-20 split you're talking about in terms of budgeting. Everything's in there. It's all for free. Wayne spent countless hours on writing this book, and hopefully you guys can rake in the big bucks as well. So thanks so much, Wayne. Is there any last pieces of advice that you want to give business owners? Or
like everything, just try and make the time, I guess, to think about your personal financial situation and what you want to do. And once you set some time there, then it gets rid of a lot of stress. You can start making things happen.
Plan ahead.
Yeah, that's a good one.